Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. If you'll stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Eve. Now is the time for public comment. Any public comment? Please come forward and give your name and address.
My name is Frank Kaderga, and I'm at 315 Coeur d'Alene Avenue, Norm's downtown auto body. And the reason I'm here is because my street's lopsided now. I have gorgeous street lights and benches on one side and nice trees and lights, and I'm kind of naked on the other side of the street. And I'm just here to see if Unite Coeur d'Alene might be interested in doing something to make our side of the street a little brighter. About 20 years ago, my neighbors and I put the sidewalks in there. So it would be something on the order of cosmetics, more than pouring a lot of concrete. If we could just get trees, some benches, and some lights, that's probably all we would need. And not only that, it would tie the street together. And it definitely needs to be tied together. It really looks lopsided right now. If you'll notice, if anybody's been there before, on the corner where the gym is, there is a bench and a tree that the city put in, I don't know how long ago, but they stopped right there. So what you're talking here is you're talking the real estate office, my building, and Dennis Cunningham's building. That would take you to 3rd Street. And to me, it doesn't look like major work, but to me, it also looks like it really needs to be done. So in lieu of that, I hope it can happen. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
As long as Frank brought the subject up. So it's always been one of my goals, even back in the 1980s when we first started the downtown revitalizations, it was to try and have a grid system downtown, and we'd kind of gotten to a one street downtown on Sherman, and it was to try and revitalize the whole downtown and spread out from there. So I've always had a goal, and Tony may remember when we did strategic planning years and years ago. I think it was on the radar a couple of times, was to try and do something with Coeur d'Alene Avenue from 4th Street maybe down to 2nd or 1st Street down there, and kind of, fix up that part of the downtown so it looks a little better. And we've still got a little bit of time left in our district, so I don't think it'd be anything the intensity that Sherman Avenue or Lakeside was to do. But anyway, I just mentioned that so that when we're doing our next strategic planning this spring or whenever that is, that maybe we could talk about trying to get that on the radar.
Are we talking about north of the parking garage?
Yeah. Yeah, looks pretty
That
good.
block
What
between-
Frank's referring
between
to,
3rd and 4th?
they fixed the streetscape where the garage is, but I mean.
Just the other side of the street,
Yeah.
between 3rd and 4th.
You've got streetscape on Lakeside, and then we never quite got up to Coeur d'Alene. Then we've talked about it a few times way in the past, and so it's not bad east of 4th Street, but the logical place would be 4th down to 3rd, that four block stretch, to try and make that part of the downtown look a little nicer, because we're getting such a great looking downtown, and there's so much going on downtown right now, and maybe that would encourage some more redevelopment up there.
Okay. Any other public comment? Any other group comment?
What would
Hearing-
it take to move forward with something like that, though? The improvements, would it have to get bids or proposals, or
We just have to be a priority for the board, and then we just kind of have to weave it into the financial plan.
could it be brought up at a future meeting possibly?
Sure.
Yeah.
Something that would be requested from the city, the correct city department?
Could be. We could also form a partnership. I know we have a street tree fund that could be utilized for some of that, the street trees. And so I think that we should, maybe Tony and Troy can have an initial conversation to see what can be done there and bring it back.
Perfect.
To the board.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, if we could move towards trying to prioritize that, that would be great.
Good, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the October 17th board meeting.
Can we do both minutes at the same time?
Nope.
Okay,
Separate.
I
You need to
make a motion to approve the minutes of October 17th board meeting.
Second.
Been seconded. Discussion, corrections, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Special call meeting of November 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 6th special call meeting minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded for that. Discussion, corrections. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. Now we are ready for Hillary Anderson. Drum roll.
Drum roll. Good evening. All right, get this PowerPoint loaded up. Thank you for having me here this afternoon to present to you the Midtown Parking Study. So if you will recall, Ignite and the city hired Rich and Associates earlier this year to evaluate the parking situation in Midtown. And so they came to the area. They were here in June, and what they did was they actually sat out there for 2 days and into the evening and figured out how many cars were parked in the area, how long the cars stayed there, what the turnover of the parking spaces was. They looked at the on-street parking in the area identified on this map, as well as the public and private parking lots, just to find out what's going on with our parking situation. I think it was really an important study for them and for us, just to figure out what's going on in terms of how many parking spaces are available, what's the utilization, and do we have a deficit or a surplus of parking in the area. So the study area is 9 blocks, and it's shown on the screen there, kind of on the right side. So the 9-block area starts, the northern boundary is Harrison Avenue, southern is Foster Avenue, and then the core of it really is 4th Street, and then Boise to the north and Reed to the south. And so this is where we really see most of the businesses and most of the parking impacts for the area. So when they looked at the parking supply, parking utilization, and then the current future parking demands, they also looked at existing buildings that were there as well as the potential for new development, and just to make sure that we're evaluating everything, not only the current conditions, but future, what could be. And so they looked at parking demand ratios using the Urban Land Institute and the American Planning Association as well, just to make sure, and other studies that they would rely on that show kind of what is the demand for if development occurs in the area. And so I'll show you kind of on the next few slides what the results of that study were. We also had a public meeting June 12th that was well attended. I had the sign-in sheet. There was about 33 people that signed in. So I know from our recent meeting we had about 50 total, including staff and commissioners. So it's probably about the same number of people that are very interested in the parking in the Midtown area. We received the final report in September and then did a presentation recently to City Council as well. So the findings were that the total parking supply within that study area are 948 total spaces, and the mix of that is 332 are publicly owned and 616 are privately owned. So the ratio of that is 35% would be public and private is 65%. And Rich and Associates, they recommend that it should be closer to 50-50. That's really the goal, just for a healthy balance of kind of the parking management. The highest parking utilization area was really kind of in that core area, so on 4th Street from Montana to Reed Avenue. And as we all know, people like to park where it's very convenient. They like the on-street parking right in front of the businesses that they're trying to patron. They don't want to walk very far distances. That tends to be the preference of most people, and I think that's true of some of the employees in the Midtown area, and I know that was true of a lot of the businesses in the downtown as well. The peak occupancy was really that lunchtime time frame, so the 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then the overall daytime, so there's a surplus that she found overall, but really for the daytime there's over 400 parking spaces for the surplus. Now, one of the things we'll talk about later in terms of some of the feedback from community members is the number of parking spaces included in the study, it does include the parking lot in front of Safeway. It includes some of the parking lots that are privately owned that may or may not be available for public use. And so the surplus does include those numbers. The core area has a surplus of 88 spaces during that daytime as well. And then the nighttime, the peak time frame for people to be going to the restaurants and a lot of the businesses is right around 5 p.m. And so we're showing the occupancy is only at 26% during that time. So one of the things that came up at the public meeting was they wanted to see kind of some of the maps. It was, really hard to talk about the study area and the parking lot. So I wanted to include this map for you this evening. It shows on here, the orange is the private parking lots and the green are the public lots. And so the green are here. So this is the one on 3rd Street. This is the one on 4th Street. This is the north half of the map. So this is Harrison, and then there's a split line here, Miller Avenue. So this is really the southern portion of the study area. And then the pinkish fuchsia is unmarked. And then the red is indicated as no parking zones. And then the blue is more of the barrier-free areas. So as you can see here, what she also did is, so the circled numbers are the blocks. So again, there's 9 blocks that were studied, and then there's the number of parking spaces for each. So this really kind of shows what the counts are in each of the parking lots. So for the city and the Ignite lots, the public lots are 30 for the lot on 3rd Street and 34, I believe that says on the one on 4th Street. Safeway, again, as I mentioned, 143 spaces may or may not really be available for use. So some of the findings that she also tracked was how long the vehicles are staying there. And so these numbers indicate if there were vehicles there beyond 2 hours. And so that was kind of showing maybe these are more the employees or people that are there for a longer duration. So again, the numbers are kind of here on the map, just indicating the more popular zones. So we have on this one, this is Reed. So we have on the north side 7, on the south side is 5. Up here, this one is Birch Avenue, so 6 on the north side and 4 on the south side. And then the other ones are kind of just scattered. So you can see there are some areas where people like to be parked to be kind of in close proximity to these businesses. Here's Capone's. So peak occupancy, as I mentioned, it really is that lunchtime time frame, so from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So what she showed here on the map was parking occupancy. So how well utilized are those parking spaces? And meaning how many of them are being occupied for that time frame. So 85% to 100% is shown in this kind of reddish color. So you can see here, these parking spaces, this is the junk building. So that is a very popular parking lot, as are some of the parking spaces right here on the east side of 4th Street. Yellow indicates 75% to 84% utilized, and so we have some properties over here off of Reed that are kind of in that category. And then the green is 50% to 74%, and then the blue is 0 to 49%. So you can see that the public lots, there's a mix of those. So the one on 4th Street is better utilized. Peak occupancy is kind of that 50 to 74%, and then the one on 3rd Street is the lower, the 0 to 49%. So after receiving the study from Rich and Associates, really we wanted to look through that. She included some recommendations for us. The mayor had some great suggestions. We talked through those. So city administration, staff, the mayor looked at what are some really viable solutions in the Midtown area to address the parking situation. We know we have a surplus, but we also have a parking management issue. We know that we have challenges with the 2 existing public lots. They aren't being used, so we're trying to dive deeper into that. Why aren't they being used? What can we do to improve that situation? And so this list here, I'll walk through those with you, but really these 10 items seem like they're viable for us to work together with Ignite and the city to help improve the parking situation and parking management in the Midtown area. And one of the things I said at some of the previous meetings is we don't really have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. So we need to encourage them to walk. We need to provide that the parking lots, the public parking lots need to be desirable, they need to be safe, so that people are willing to park in those areas, especially in the kind of the peak time frame. So, and at night would be more of the concern for the lighting and some of those other concerns. So this first one really addresses those public parking lots. And so we are looking already at how can we improve the lighting in both of those parking lots. We know that there's some limitations currently, and so we want to address how we can light the parking lots so that it feels safe, but not impact the surrounding residential areas or have any kind of light pollution. The striping in both parking lots it's not a very efficient use of the space, so there's a lot of wasted space. So we know by even just restriping those parking lots, we can gain additional parking spaces, especially if we can acquire some additional property. Then we really think we could acquire up to 20 additional parking spaces in at least one of the lots, if not in each of those lots. And then we know there's some need for asphalt repairs. The parking lots, over time, the asphalt needs to have some maintenance and some upgrades to make it so that it's more drivable, and I think that would work really well we'd want to have clean asphalt to stripe it in anyway. One of the other things with those public parking lots we've heard is there's a concern with some cut-through traffic. So people coming south on 3rd Street, cutting through the parking lot on 3rd, going through the one on 4th, and then heading east on Montana. And also with looking at these public parking lots, figuring out is there a way to change the configuration a little bit, make it so it's difficult for people to speed through and create that safety issue. The second one is also to work together, so the city and Ignite, to figure out are there opportunities for acquiring additional land for public parking in that core area. And so we are looking at, is there an opportunity to purchase some property potentially south of the parking lot on 3rd to expand that and kind of reconfigure it, and any other opportunities that we see fit to continue to explore those before the Lake District expires in 2021 would really be the goal. The other one that came to our, she said it in the study, but it's also became very clear at the public meeting, was that the signage is kind of lacking. So a few of the people at the meeting even said they thought it was a private parking lot for the parking lot on 4th, because they hadn't really noticed the small little sandwich board sign. It wasn't very clear that this is public and that it's free. And so I think that's critical, that we have to have some kind of signage that's very clear, that's prominent, that directs people, and potentially is artistic and creative as well. And so I think we have a lot of opportunities on both 3rd and 4th Street to do that and direct sign the cars where we want them to go, as well as some opportunities on some of the side streets too, like Roosevelt, to direct people to be able to drive through the alley to the public parking lots. Improving the lighting in the alley as well. So what she mentioned in here, and I think is clear if anyone goes down there and you're looking for parking at night, is okay, so the direct shot, if you're parked at, or if you're going to dine at Capone's, for example, and you want to go back to your car, you need to be able to feel safe walking along the alley. So let's make sure that we can make it so it feels safe. So if we need to improve any of the pavement conditions there as well. And then the consultant also suggested we could even do things like murals or something just to kind of activate the alley and make it so it's a desirable pedestrian corridor. The other thing that I think is really important for us to consider is looking at a resident-only parking program. And this is something that we were looking at just for a limited area, because we're really just seeing kind of the impacts on Montana between 4th and 5th Street east of the alley, as well as on Reed south, on the south side of the street between 4th and 5th. So this would not go onto 5th Street or into the other areas, but those two streets is kind of a starting point just to evaluate how well that could function. We would need to figure out the enforcement of that, because that's critical. We can't just have a permit only and not have enforcement or just having complaint-based. So that's something that we want to evaluate further, is how well would that function, would that help, so that we can lessen the impacts on the residents in the area. Encouraging shared use parking in some of the private lots. So even at the public meeting we had recently, talking to the Lutheran Church, sounds like they might be open to some kind of opportunity to share parking. Maybe there's a permit program for employees that work in the Midtown area that could park there. And then the concern we heard with some of the shared parking is there might be trash or there might be some other things occurring, but if it was really just the employees only and there was some kind of permit program, maybe some shared or some cost or something, some payment to the churches or others, that might be a great arrangement for us to open up some other off-street parking arrangements. Creating a loading zone or some kind of loading policy for deliveries. So this we really heard was a big concern of the neighbors and the businesses in the area, was that some of these vehicles will block driveway access to either the residents or the businesses. That it's just creating some concerns in terms of how people are able to get through the Midtown area. So looking at, are there opportunities to create designated loading zones or policies for where the loading or the delivery trucks would be able to stop and how they would be able to be safe and allow for the through traffic as well. Marketing of parking lots, so we have some kind of examples here on the screen, and this is something Rich and Associates helped us with downtown as well, is how do we get the word out to the public? What are ways for us to create some brochures, some online information, have the restaurants and businesses in Midtown help share this information with their customers that there are public parking lots and it's free, and let them know where it is. And I guess a few years ago, or a number of years ago, there was a discussion of some like window decals for the businesses. So things like that, just looking at creative ways to help market that there is free off-street public parking. Identifying future public parking lots, so this one is kind of in conjunction with this number 2. Again, if the city and Ignite can work together just to identify other opportunities to create more of that. So number 10, creating that balance. We really want to get to 50% publicly owned parking lots and 50% privately owned. So the meeting we had on November 5th was kind of the follow-up to the study and kind of presenting the results, the same information as you heard this evening, but hearing from the stakeholders on what other concerns they might have about the parking in Midtown and any concerns they had with the study itself. And as I mentioned, some of the things we did here was that maybe some of the numbers in the report seemed a little skewed, because if it did include the Safeway parking lot, for example, or the parking near the funeral home, maybe that's not an exactly accurate representation of available parking for the area. So we recognize that, but we do feel that the study was very well done and that the summary and the information contained in there can be used for us moving forward with a parking plan. The other thing that I already mentioned was really the need for improving our existing public parking lots, making them so that they are used, making them so that they feel safe, and so that so we can increase the number of parking spaces, make them efficient as well, and in conjunction have the signage so that it's clear it's the public. The cut-through traffic, I already talked about that, and then they also did encourage us to look at any of those opportunities to partner for shared parking. So the next steps were really presented to council on the 6th, presentation to you this evening. Council at the meeting on November 6th did direct staff to move forward and develop a Midtown parking plan. And so the goal there is we'll be working over the next couple months and come back to the City Council at the second meeting in February to present the Midtown parking plan. And that's something where it'll be a multidisciplinary effort from city staff. And if any members of Ignite would like to assist with that, we would gladly welcome the assistance. But really looking at all of those different things. How can we improve parking lots, signage, marketing, the loading zones, everything that was mentioned. So with that, I would be happy to stand for questions.
Did you calculate how many more public spots are needed to achieve the 50-50 balance?
You know, I don't know that number offhand. Mayor, do you recall if that was in the report?
It is, those numbers are in the report. It's a considerable number.
It would
You know, the
be.
balance is
It
supposed to be
sounds-
50-50,
yeah.
and right off the top, I'm thinking that it is in the 30-70, maybe even a little less than 30, and a little higher than 70 ratio of public to private, skewed obviously by Safeway's parking lot, which is all private, and the Yates parking lot, which is all private, and
Right.
so there's a ways to go. So
Eight-
35-65, yeah, that's what it was.
So we're, the total of 948 spaces, we would,
So we're 200.
200 off probably? Yep.
280 off
200, that's a lot of spaces.
to reach that, to reach 50-50.
Would
but-
shared parking achieve that? If you brought in enough shared parking, would that qualify for the 50-50, or is that not?
You know, it could, but again, I think that the main crux of the parking there is Reed to Boise, because those are some, especially from the businesses that are on the east side, because those don't provide their own parking. You know, Capone's provides for their own parking. Any other development that occurs on that west side, they'll have to accommodate some parking. There is parking already around the North Idaho Youth Ranch, which is public.
So they'd have to
parking.
provide their own.
Yeah, so it's, the issue mainly is that Reed to Boise corridor, which wouldn't require a 280 addition of public parking spots, but it is in need probably of some.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks.
So are you looking for volunteers to help, or what?
Are you volunteering?
Well, I'm just gonna make sure you got one before we got out of here.
We've got a pretty good team.
We do.
I've recruited Captain Dave Hagar from Coeur d'Alene PD, who has experience in his previous job in Arizona on parking issues, and obviously a very bright guy, and he's gonna help us with that and that the residential portion of it and how we're gonna enforce that. I think that's important. The one thing that we were talking about, delivery zone, that's important, that I don't know that we realize. It's not so much blocking in the streets, but even if they're in the alley, let's say if they're in the alley behind Capone's and somebody pulls in there early morning, say if they're gonna have a 7 a.m. delivery and you have a house that's right there and you've got a running semi that's running there for a half an hour, a little disruptive.
Blocked, you can't go to work. Yeah.
Great delivery place and locations. And
Yeah, so
that
so
makes
that's
sense. Loading
why,
and unloading.
so that's why we need to find a loading zone in there someplace. And we've got some thoughts and ideas, and we're working with Tim Martin and Chris Bosley of our Streets and Engineering Department to create something there.
So no parking in the center lane.
Yeah, no problem.
I think the recommendations look sound, so.
They really do.
Good, something to look forward to working with you on it. If you need help, holler.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thanks, Hillary. Any further comments on the parking study? Thanks to Olivia and Sarah for being on that, helping out on that at the start of that. Next will be committee reports. Finance Committee, and I think Mr. Arman is in.
Mr. Arman is out of town, so I'll pinch hit. I just passed out the copies for you. So if we look at the Lake District balance sheet, the Lake District experienced a $209,812 increase in cash assets from September month end. On the fixed assets, the land line reflects a decrease of $70,400 due to a sale of North Park Drive Lot 6. Under other assets, Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve Account increase of $80 over the month of October. The liabilities and fund balance, the bonds 2017 Series Note line item value increase of $1,364,000 due to an October draw on the note, and everything else is pretty standard for the month, including a 2% credit to the arts. Looking at the P&L, the Lake District received $23,638 in tax increment revenue from the county in October. Under the agency-funded initiatives, the downtown parking garage, the funds paid in October, $1,374,506, were expensed to September fiscal year end, since those costs were incurred in September in the last fiscal year. And for the Four Corners projects, the funds paid in October, $223,822, were also expensed to the September fiscal year end. The professional fees line item credit pertains to a fiscal year end accounting relating to professional fees shared between Lake and River, and accounts payable in October but expensed to September. So we're having a lot of year-end fiscal, accounting going on here. Under property divestiture, the line item income of $168,246 is a result of the book sale proceeds of lots 6 and 9 on North Park Drive on October 1st for $458,646, less the lot 6 book value of $70,400, less lot 9 appraised value of $220,000. So that's that net number math. All other P&L expenditures are in line with a normal operating month. Switching over to the River District experienced a $722,208 decrease in cash assets from September month end, and everything else is pretty much standard on the balance sheet, including the 2% credit to the arts. On the P&L, the River District received $15,017 in tax increment revenue from the county. The agency-funded initiatives, Celtice Way funds paid in October of $713,372 were expensed to September fiscal year end, and all other P&L expenditure line items are within normal parameters for operating month, 50% cost share with the lake. So a pretty straightforward month, minus or less a few end of the fiscal year accounting moves. Switching over to the payables, I've passed those out to you. Not a super big month this year, but for Elam and Burke, we have $6,055.85, mainly for district plans and the 2018 Washington Trust River District bond work. Holly Troxel, a total of $14,737, broken out $8,802 for general counsel and URD planning process, $5,758 for the 2018 River District note bond council work, and $176 on the 301 Lakeside PSA that we have hopefully to close by December 10th. Looking down the page, we have Welch Comer Engineers, help with their Young Avenue asset analysis of $1,650. Atlas Millsite Initiative totaling $65,065, broken out by some Welch Comer fees of $2,240 for the master plan. That kind of finishes out that line item as you see the final payment. We have our first invoice for the new engagement we have with Welch Comer for $48,200. And the Atlas Site Engineering Services that we're splitting with the city for $14,625. That's a total of $65,065. Downtown parking structure, Miller Stauffer Design, $2,250. And contractor T.La Riviere, $167,789 for a total of $170,039. And finally, just a little bit of berm work out of our $30,000 FY19 budget paid to Bernardo Wills of $1,891. So total payables for the month are $259,438.06.
Any questions on the financials or payables?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Tony, do we have some holdbacks for some of the landscaping work? 'Cause I think there's maybe some landscaping work that needs to be completed, thinking Celtice Way maybe.
Well, yes, you can see there that remaining funds on Celtice Way, including retainage, we have, where am I at? $466,490.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the financials and payables.
So moved?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the financials and payables. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony.
Next item we have is a Washington Trust Bank River District 2018 note. I'll partner here with Danielle to kind of walk you through this, but we're bringing forward this note. This is our $7 million note with Washington Trust Bank that you are well aware of for our new adventures out on the Stimson Millside area. It's a resolution. I guess I can go ahead and read the resolution in introduction. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Coeur d'Alene Urban Renewal Agency doing business as Ignite CDA, the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Coeur d'Alene, authorizing the issuance and sale to Washington Trust Bank of its Revenue Allocation Note, Series 2019 River District Redevelopment Project, in a principal amount of up to $7 million to finance, in part, the redevelopment of the River District Urban Renewal Area, including but not limited to financing costs of any eligible capital expenditure projects within the River District Urban Renewal Area, as amended, authorized under the River District Redevelopment Plan, as amended, and costs of issuing the Series 2019 note, collectively the project, authorizing the date maturity and other terms of the note and the accompanying note purchase and security agreement, authorizing the chair, vice chair, and executive director to take appropriate action and providing an effective date. Danielle, any comments?
Sure. I just thought I would walk through the material terms of the note purchase agreement just to refresh everyone's memory and so you kind of know where we're headed. This is anticipated to be utilized for the Stimson project. So we are not going to close it until the City Council officially approves those changes to the districts and the creation of the new Atlas District, because we wouldn't have a reason to borrow the money if we're not moving forward with that project. So that's one thing. We intend to close it in January after the Urban Renewal Agency, or the Urban Renewal Districts have been officially amended and created. Just to quickly point out a few things, the pledge of security is a general pledge of the tax increment funds from the River District. It is subject to the prior liens that are already existing in the River District, so they are subordinated to those. as a reminder, these projects, or the funds have to be spent on tax exempt permissible projects, so public type projects. There shouldn't be any trouble with that in terms of, we expect to be spending them mostly on infrastructure and land development, in preparation for the sale of some of that project and also turning some of it into public space. There is a requirement of cash on hand. We have that with the existing Lake District note. It starts at $700,000 and then it'll be adjusted annually based on what the balance is on that note, but something just to be aware of. Tony has that in the financial models. And then in terms of the really material terms, it's not to exceed $7 million. I don't see, the interest rate is 3.3%. The maturity date is August 1, 2028, and the payments will start the February 1 or August 1 after $1 million has been drawn, and then there'll be an amortization schedule developed based on that. Like your other ones, it's prepayable at any time, and again, it's the security is those TIF revenues with a, subordinate to the existing debt. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I just wanted to give you that background.
Thank you.
Any questions for Danielle or Tony? Thank you.
So we want,
Action here for a resolution for a road.
I would move to approve resolution number 19-01, approval of Washington Trust Bank River District note.
Okay, it's been moved and then seconded by Deanna.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Yes. Metz?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Chapkus?
Yes.
That's it for you. Next up is the Parking Commissioner, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, I'll be fairly brief, Mr. Chairman. Probably the biggest thing is the opening of the long-anticipated parking structure, and I saw a lot of you there at the grand opening or at the sneak peek last week. So we're off and running. Tomorrow it should be open. Expecting a pretty good crowd tomorrow night for the parade.
Thursday, Friday night.
Friday night.
I mean,
Yeah.
Friday night,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Were you having a parade tomorrow too?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
You'll be in it.
Yeah.
Brad Jordan.
So Brad, it is going to be ready on Friday? I heard it wasn't. So
As of this afternoon.
it is go for special event.
It's a fingers crossed go for
Okay, all
Friday.
right, good. Good to hear.
I heard as of this morning, you heard this afternoon,
I heard this
so that's
afternoon.
even better.
That is better.
I heard it from
yeah.
the main man this afternoon, who's in charge.
Well, anyway, hopefully it'll be ready night after tomorrow. But we're close.
Over 16 years ago, this board started acquiring land with the construction of that parking garage.
Yeah,
So talk about a
Quite a project,
long
yeah.
time project, and to achieve that final goal for this city, wow. And it's sexy. It's a nice looking parking garage.
yeah, we get a lot of compliments on it. It's gotta be one of the nicest looking garages in the state of Idaho.
I think so. So
Maybe the nicest.
thanks again to
looking.
all of our contractors and architects and design people, and thanks to the public for putting up and having the patience and support of all that. So that was a great project for everybody.
It's really tough on the adjacent property owners when you do any kind of a project like this, whether it's a street redevelopment or a parking garage like this, so I really feel for the property owners. We appreciate what you put up with.
Yeah.
And, it's nice that our downtown has matured to the point it can support these parking structures like this, so it's great what's happening in the downtown right now. There's a lot of good things going on. The Parking Commission has finalized their parking rates, and I don't have the whole list with me right now, but we've got a pretty good number of parking lots, of course, through the downtown, and they're kind of prioritized price-wise as to what are the most, strategically, desirable parking lots. I think Independence Point was looked at as the most desirable
Agreed.
parking lot. Now, the new structure on Coeur d'Alene Avenue, that's a little bit less than the McEwen one. So we're trying to draw people up to that structure in that part of the downtown. Also, the new parking lot down by the skateboard plaza and the Memorial Field, that's probably the best bang for the buck parking lot right now to try and, draw people down to utilize that parking lot. There's a lot of available parking down there. But I can get a a finalized list. We had a couple of corrections at the parking meeting last week, but I can get you a finalized list probably to Tony and have him disseminate that to you.
There was something published on KXLY's website today that showed the parking rates, and I didn't verify how accurate it was, but there was something that went out.
Yeah. Yeah, we made a few changes at the last meeting, which Jim was at, but I can get a finalized list on that. So that's about it.
Thank you very much.
John, thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, just want to note that Gonzaga did win the game tonight by 2 points, if anyone's interested. First item I have is Young Avenue property disposition discussion. Continue the conversation. I think Mr. Saylor would like to visit with the board, if that's at the pleasure of the chairman.
Thank you. 89-87. Close game. Well, first of all, I want to thank you on behalf of the Tubbs Hill Foundation for the continuing discussion about the Young Avenue property. And I would like to take a moment to address the newsletter that I passed out earlier. It has several articles that relate to what the Tubbs Hill Foundation is doing on Tubbs Hill, one of which relates to our topic here tonight. But I thought it might be helpful just to briefly go through those 3 items that are in the middle of the newsletter. We have worked this year to improve trail signage on Tubbs Hill. We've had a lot of encounters with folks up there and feedback from people that when they march or walk on the hill, they get lost, they can't find where they're going, or they don't know what the signs mean. So we have done some work and working with the Parks Department, come up with a plan to improve signage so that folks can find their way around the hill better. And that's a subset of a bigger issue, which is the whole idea of remediation of trails on the hill. There are many, many user trails which are unauthorized. They're causing damage to the habitat up on the hill as well as erosion. So we've been working for a considerable amount of time to try to come up with a plan in conjunction with the Parks Department to deal with that. And in fact, the first weekend in December, we are going out on the hill with a group of students from Lake City High School to do some GPS mapping of those trails to then begin to see which ones have priority for remediation. And that's actually a subset of another bigger issue, which is the overall health of Tubbs Hill, and particularly the forest of Tubbs Hill. Mayor Widemeyer and I had a conversation a couple months ago. Our board has talked about this quite a bit, and the article in here about the forest, the trees on the hill, relates to that one, and that'll be a subject of our discussion at our board meeting on December 6th. And the other one, of course, that's here is the Young Avenue property. It's the Ain't Over article, which I wrote earlier after our last meeting here, last month, our presentation here, and did send a copy to Tony for his approval. I wanted to make sure I was being fair and objective on this, to give a brief summary of what's happened. This is intended for our supporters, for those 400 or so people that get the newsletter. And so with that, I would also refer you then to the article or the letter that I submitted to Ignite about a week ago. And I don't know if you had a chance to look it over or not. Most of you probably have. Basically, it reiterates the position that the Tubbs Hill Foundation took originally, with the concept that this property should all remain public. We think that we take this stance for a number of reasons. One is because it's true to our mission as who we are, to protect and enhance the hill and to advise the city on issues regarding the hill. Also, it looks to us that the city's own documents, as well as Ignite, support that concept. Our comprehensive plan talks in one of the areas of goals about the natural environment. It includes the phrases that I've listed here: protecting the aesthetics of the hillsides, providing ample open space, protecting key vistas and views, and the natural terrain be preserved. And then the open space master plan that I referred to last month includes the Tubbs Hill Management Plan, which talks about acquiring adjacent property by the city. And then, as you know, Ignite's own mission statement does include the idea of promoting superior open public spaces. So you can see then our position is that we would like to see this property remain public. We believe that's the most valuable long-term use for it, to benefit the public by enhancing the access to Tubbs Hill, as well as providing a good link between Tubbs Hill and McEwen Park. I've listed a few of the ideas there that we think that space could be used for, and there are others I know that have been talked about. We don't want to develop it and put a big building on it or any major structures. We'd like to keep it as an open area for some other kinds of uses. So we don't have a magic bullet, a silver bullet. Mary Lou Reed has withdrawn her original offer, so the proposal that we made originally really isn't valid. The attempted land swap, of course, didn't go through as well. But we do want to iterate that we are very willing to be involved in the process. When I met with Mayor Widmeyer and Mary Lou Reed about a week or so ago, we talked about some possibilities. One of them was to create a working partnership between Ignite and the city and Tubbs Hill, and try to draw in some other partners, perhaps the Panhandle Health or Panhandle Parks Foundation, maybe KEA, to create a coalition to find ways to resolve this issue to the satisfaction of all parties. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. And basically all I really have to say tonight, except we'll be willing to have more discussion with you. I do want to turn it over to another member of our board. Chuck Hozak would also like to speak briefly. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Chuck Hozak, 1020 Mountain here in Coeur d'Alene. And I've been a member of the Tubbs Hill Committee for quite some time, and thought it might help to give a little bit of background as to the history of what maybe at least some of you might not be familiar with regard to the Cherry Hill property. I presume that this letter did go out from Mr. Saylor. People have had it, and that we have there the offer of our Cherry Hill property. And the once we don't know the value for sure. We are sure that the value is substantially less than the figures you guys are talking about. The disparity is extremely great. However, it is an offer that we have made, and although it may not sound like very much money to, depending on one's perspective, from the Tubbs Hill Foundation's viewpoint, it's a lot of money because it's all we got. That property was gifted to us by Art Manley years ago. I remember he came into the Tubbs Hill committee meeting, and at that time Art wasn't attending on a regular basis, but he advised us as a board that he had this property and that he was going to give it to Tubbs Hill, because he was so concerned with the fact that Tubbs Hill never had any money of any significance to work with property acquisition. And so he gifted this property to us, and we've held it ever since as something for this type of opportunity. And as I say, it's all, I don't know whether we're into negotiations or not. We're willing to negotiate, but all we could do is negotiate a lesser amount, which would, I mean, we'd be open to that. But that is what we have. I feel it is a very significant offer for a number of reasons. One, it's all we got. Number two, it continues the legacy of Art Manley and Scott Reed and the kind of cooperation that city councils, prior city councils, people in downtown, businessmen, citizens alike have all worked together to preserve Tubbs Hill in its natural state. And it's certainly consistent, I think, with what Art had in mind. We're spending it all in one spot, but it's and as I say, we're certainly happy to spend less, but it continues that legacy that I think Tubbs Hill stands for in terms of preserving a natural area in the middle of a very prosperous downtown of Coeur d'Alene. I think that 25 years from now, the ponderosa that are growing there now will be that much bigger and that much more majestic. One of our members indicates it's a good growth spot for white pine. Maybe we could plant some white pine in there, the state tree, and have a really majestic forest grove there at the base of Tubbs Hill. And 25, 30 years from now, people will be standing there. And the other part of your legacy, the work that you've done that has created a vibrant downtown, will obviously be there for them, but they'll also see this spot. And I know George mentioned it, it didn't seem like much, but I think it tells such a great story. If there were a rock there with a plaque, and I think if it has Ignite's name on it, it should also say it was, make clear it was a Downtown Development Corporation that was involved in doing it, because who will know, I don't know how many people would remember the name Ignite 25, 30 years from now. And it tells a great story of a cooperation between, as I say, the city and people who enjoy Tubbs Hill for future generations. And people will stand there and they'll see the vibrant downtown, but they'll also really see a nice piece of Tubbs Hill. So even if we have to, we don't want to donate or contribute that sum, but if it's what we need to do, I'm sure Art would be okay with it. So, but thank you for giving us a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Deanna.
You know, this property has a lot of value to Tubbs Hill and to the community as a whole. I think developing it would be a mistake on our part. I think it needs to be maintained as a public space, and it needs to be utilized in ways that also connect it with McEwen Park. And the city needs to maintain and keep the property in the city's hands in order to do so. I think that's very important. So I would like to see us encourage the city to partner with us and maintain this property as public property connected to Tubbs Hill and connected to McEwen Park. This is the direction I'd like to see us go. I don't know if I can make a motion to that effect or not. Danielle?
It's marked for action.
Okay. I would like to move that we retain this property and work with the city, maintain it as a public space, to maintain it as a public space and turn it over to the city, and to utilize it in ways that also access Tubbs Hill and also access to McEwen Park as a part of the park. So that's my motion.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further
Good job.
discussion?
Just a comment from the fiduciary person over here.
Sure.
You have $629,000 of public money invested in this asset that you have to be mindful of if you're going to gift it to the city. You know, that's a huge opportunity cost of funds that could be used for other projects within the district. So just be mindful of the decision you're going to make. Is you really have to rationalize that move.
Agreed, but isn't this going back to the public? I mean, this is a
But
public space.
It never was public space.
It will be, though.
But it never was. That's the fact.
Okay.
We used taxpayer money to buy it.
Right.
Off the tax rolls.
But we're adding value. We're adding value to the public.
But where does that money go that we were going to spend on like Atlas or someplace else? Where does that money come from?
I don't know, but I'm here to protect Tubbs Hill. I'm telling you, this is a important part of Coeur d'Alene, and
Well, it never was Tubbs Hill either, though.
I understand. I understand.
I don't,
Call for the question. You have a motion on the floor, sir.
Correct, and we're in discussion now. And you call for a question? We're not done discussing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
We're still just discussing.
Still in the discussion mode. We're still discussing the motion.
Okay.
Sarah?
I am 100% in,
If I call for the question, he needs to take it to a vote.
Well, we'll discuss.
Robert's rules.
Yeah, we'll discuss it and then we'll.
just piggybacking on what Tony said, I feel the same way about Tubbs Hill and all that stuff, but I'm also a fiduciary person, and that's my role in life. So do. Just flat out with, making a decision right now to just gift it is challenging for me.
Without having the finance committee or something review it to
The
find out where
finance
that
committee
money-
hasn't had an opportunity to discuss the opportunity cost and the potential of what this means from an Atlas Mill Site funding project standpoint. It sounded like Mr. Saylor was saying that there are some ideas of some ways that we could work together. I am not suggesting that we develop it. I'm just suggesting that perhaps we may not want to make a gifting decision tonight until we've had a chance to look at what some of the options might be.
I think it's important that we need to recognize the value to the city and to McEwen Park as part of this property, as opposed to other alternatives. I think it's important that it remains a part of the city. And that was the intent of my motion, was that this property, that we worked with the city to partner and maintain this property as part of the McEwen Park.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just ask Brad, you've been here since the beginning, when this property was assembled way back when, and when was the first piece bought, in the late 90s? So what was the intent of when it was originally purchased?
We thought it, Tony could give you the date, but it's somewhere back into the 90s, I think. Well, we had some dilapidated, underutilized properties there, and they weren't the greatest looking properties, and we thought it was strategic property because, we envisioned some things happening in the future with the city hall being remodeled and expanded maybe, and potentially McEwen Park, and we saw that as some key strategic property we should acquire, is that the city hall needed more property, we needed more parking, anything along that line. We just thought while it was available to get it before the price went up too high, we thought it was important to own that property.
So the intent originally was to purchase it for public use? It'd be public use, yeah. The things that you mentioned were public use.
I don't think we saw that as, in all honesty, I don't think we saw that as part of Tubbs Hill. And I think everyone supports Tubbs Hill here. I don't think that's a problem, but yeah, if you're saying public use, yeah, it was public use. We saw it as being needed by the city hall or McEwen Park or something like that. And as time evolved, we saw some potential projects, like maybe some kind of housing project, without getting into all kinds of the minutia of the different types of housing projects. We saw that as some kind of a unique housing project that would really add some money to the downtown and be a good demonstration project as to what good development could be. So we saw a lot of different things, but that evolved over time, but we initially just saw it as a key strategic property. Now, we also saw that property that we sold over on the end of 8th Street as a key strategic property in case we ever wanted to bring 8th Street through here to have better traffic flow for the city hall and the future libraries. It turned out we didn't need it. But that, we don't always know what's going to happen in the future. We got a couple of properties we acquired for the future parking garage that are excess properties that we're liquidating. But that was why we did it back then. And just real quick, I would just say, I'm probably going to vote no tonight, and it's not that I don't support ultimately this going to Tubbs Hill or whatever happens. I just wasn't prepared to make a vote yes or no tonight. We've got a package on a property that I haven't had a chance to look at yet on up above Cherry Hill here that they wanted to put into the mix. I don't know if that's part of it or not, but I'm just not prepared to do a vote one way or the other without the finance committee looking at what the impact is and some things like that. So if I vote no, it doesn't mean I'm against Tubbs Hill tonight. It just is kind of unexpected.
Tony, I've got a question. Has this ever been opened up to the public where they could put their input, since it is public dollars, where we get their feedback on the best use of this property? I mean, have we ever done that prior to me joining the board?
Any property or this property?
This particular property.
Have we ever done it for any property?
No,
Well-
we buy these properties strategically,
Right.
for these initiatives, and then if the initiatives don't work out the way, like Brad just decided, then the board has the ability to go ahead and put them back on a tax roll, sell them, or, do whatever you like. But As Brad captured, this was, the intent was to make this kind of the downtown campus for the city hall.
I remember.
And
Yeah.
expand that area. And also, we talked about mixed-use commercial, and maybe doing a mixed-use city hall with, private and government functions. So this was kind of all in the mix. And when the McEwen Park renovation was done and this property was no longer needed, the parking was, parking area was defined, then it came back to, should we put it back on the tax rolls?
Does the public have some input here, though? I mean, obviously, it's their dollars, correct? So do we give them an opportunity to say their feelings on developing this property or making it part of Tubbs Hill?
I think that's what you're hearing from the Tubbs Hill Foundation.
I think the public has input on anything we do.
It would be no different on the Park Drive lots we sold. I mean,
Right.
did we ask for input on that and the parking, the stuff in the parking garage? And I mean,
This is a little more passionate, I think, to people, though.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there any way that we could maybe direct Tony to discuss the options a little bit further and review in Finance Committee to kind of undertake a little bit more a diligent perspective?
Well, there's a motion and a second on the table, so we would have to either vote no or have them remove the motion to have then it reviewed by Finance Committee prior and then bring it back for action at a later date.
I'd like to speak to the motion. And the reason that I feel it's important that the city be the controlling agent of this property is it needs to be maintained. And the city has the ability to maintain it and take care of it. So I think it's important that, an exchange of property on Cherry Hill, which is no question valuable. Cherry Hill is not in any urban renewal district, so it has no value to us other than as a potential community property for the city. But Tubbs Hill Foundation has always been a great partner with the city, and I just think it's very important that this property be retained by the city for use as a connection to Tubbs Hill. And we've had some discussion in the future about some trail connections onto the hill from here, from that area. I think it's important that we utilize that area, which is, as Brad said, I believe I heard him say, that when we bought it originally, we also looked at it as an asset to the city and disposing of some very deteriorated, rundown properties and adding to our treasure, which is McEwen Field and Tubbs Hill. So I think it's very important that we recognize the value to the community of this piece of property. And I think that's far more important than trying to get something out of it. I don't think that's the point here. I think the point is to maintain this property as a piece of property that has value to our community and the citizens of our community. And that's one of our jobs. I think it's important to do that.
I'm going to echo what Brad said in that I am very supportive of Tubbs Hill and Tubbs Hill Foundation and making the right decision on this property. And I kind of feel like we haven't had enough time to digest the concept. So if I vote no tonight, it's not because I don't support Tubbs Hill, and it's not that I don't support the idea of this being public property or public access property. It's that I don't feel I'm prepared to make that kind of decision this evening. I want that to be noted.
I echo those thoughts. I'm a huge advocate of Tubbs Hill, so that would not be my agreement as well. So.
I too echo that, and I'm worried about, we've budgeted this money to go someplace and, for other projects. So we need to make sure the Finance Committee, if all of a sudden we tell them, hey, you're out $1 million, find it someplace else, or $960,000. Mm-hmm. So if we vote no, if it works that way, it's not that we're against Tubbs Hill. It's just we need some more time to think about it.
And it's not that we wouldn't in the future. It's just we need to make sure we can shift around everything, make sure it works.
And to reiterate, we will be very willing to work with you in any way we can to make that happen.
Thank you.
We appreciate that and are totally aware of that. So, and we also see the value of this to the Tubbs Hill Foundation and to the city and to the people of this city, so.
We want it to work.
I think we all do.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Need a roll call, or?
I
did
think
you
it,
get
the ayes was Goodlander, Widmeyer,
Aye.
Chapkus.
okay. And the rest are
Well,
no?
we have a tie, don't we?
No, it's 4-3.
That's why I say, are you breaking a tie then?
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. Chairman
Okay.
broke a tie.
I would just,
The chairman gets to vote.
So 4-3, motion fails?
motion fails.
Okay.
But this needs to be the top item of the Finance Committee,
So
Next
can I make a motion then?
please.
I would like to make a motion that we direct the executive director and the finance committee to do some due diligence to look at the disposition of the Young Avenue property in such a way that is advantageous to public use and respectful of the investment. That's a really big mouthful, I'm
And vote
sorry.
aye on the motion.
Huh?
To keep it to the public.
I
And
said
the city.
to look into that. I'm not going
It's
to,
important, I think, to vote aye on the motion.
Still working on it, just a minute.
yeah, I'm sorry, I know.
Might have to
That was a tough one. I was trying to make it up as I went, so I apologize. I just want to make sure we're capturing the
So,
thoughts.
motion by Garcia directing the executive director to work with the finance committee to discuss the opportunity cost of transferring this asset to the city, looking at the advantageous nature of public use versus the fiduciary investment.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, that works.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Brad?
I'd just add for maybe the benefit of people in the audience, so we've got a limited life, we've got several years left in this district, we've got a lot of commitments. We sunsetted part of the district to pay for the new fire station, and part of this district is also going to pay for all the new public land acquisition on the river, and so we don't, if we had another 10 years to go in this district, this would be a lot easier choice if we had, funds coming in for a long time, but we're getting down to the wire here. I think, what is it, 2021 or 22? 2021. So we got to be really careful with a significant amount of money like that and have the Finance Committee look at this and see how all this fits together. But I totally support Tubbs Hill. It's not a question of that. I'm just trying to be responsible also with the public funds that we're entrusted to watch for in this district and the funds that are committed for different things right now.
All right. Oh, you have a motion, I guess, don't you?
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor of Commissioner Garcia's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So that was Widmeyer and Chapkus?
Yes.
I don't think Deanna.
Deanna didn't vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
There was a motion on the floor to take this to the Finance Committee for further
Oh,
discussion.
there is a motion on the floor, but there's already a motion on the floor.
Your motion
And unless the
failed.
person that made the motion concurs to change the motion, I do not concur to change the motion.
So, Deanna, we voted on that, and that one got defeated. Right. So then the motion on the floor now is for it to go to the Finance Committee for further discussion, to bring it back, yeah. So your motion failed 4-3. I voted for you. And so-
Failed, you can make a new motion.
Yeah, and so she made a new motion to have it go to, back to the Finance Committee for further discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the motion, and so right now, there's 4 yeses, and there's 2,
I'm opposed to that, no.
so there's 3
You're
no's.
opposed to it going back to the Finance Committee.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Got that?
Got it?
Motion carries.
Carried. Right.
Well, we thank you for your consideration, and we'll look forward to continuing dialogue. Thank you.
Oh, we look
Thanks,
forward to
George.
working with you.
Thank you, George.
See what I mean about people with vision.
The word fiduciary carries a lot of weight, though. I understand it well. fiduciary, the word carries a lot of weight. I understand that.
Next item I have is parking garage property transfer agreement with the city of Coeur d'Alene. You can look at the screen up here. Ignite CDA owns or controls certain real property in Kootenai County, situated with the agency's Lake District pursuant to the agency's Lake District redevelopment plan. You see the three properties are here, here, and here. The agency would like to propose transferring these assets to the city of Coeur d'Alene as part of the new parking garage endeavor. These are 213 North 4th Street, this asset, 214 North 3rd Street, and the old 308 Coeur d'Alene Avenue. The city already owns that area that you see here, so that would, give them control of the entire footprint of the new parking garage.
You're looking for a motion on that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion then to move the parking garage property transfer agreement to the city of Coeur d'Alene.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on transferring this property to the city? All of it?
I will
Danielle?
just add that the parking garage transfer agreement is fairly simple, but one thing it does do is require the city continue to use it as a public parking garage. That's part of our requirements under the code, is that when we give property to another public agency, we have to ensure they're going to utilize it in accordance with the plan. So obviously, this parking garage is in accordance with the plan, so that's how we've captured that statutory requirement, is in that parking garage transfer agreement, which is kind of the reason for that agreement. Otherwise, we could just do a
That's
quick claim
indefinite
deed.
too.
Yeah,
So the city is going to continue to operate it as a parking garage.
right. We hope.
We're hoping they will. Okay.
Oh, there's good space for special events.
Next item I have, Mr. Chairman, is North Park Drive lots, combination of Tract A with Lot 1. Little background here.
Did we
Oh,
vote on
I
that?
don't think we voted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I thought, maybe we're voting next time.
All in favor of transferring this to the city, to parking garage bar properties? Say aye.
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 Opposed?
Did anyone make a motion?
I made a motion.
Yes.
Jim made a motion in a
I seconded.
second.
This is
Discussion.
getting confusing here
Vote.
today.
Sorry.
Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you.
We need a.
Now
We're ready.
moving on.
We're ready.
To the North Park Drive lots, combination of Tract A with Lot 1. So the background on this, when the North Park Drive subdivision was being developed, city administration requested that Tract A, and you can see that on the screen here, the big deal, Tract A, be excluded from the lot platting process for possible future city use combined with the BLM lease area. Since that time, this was several years ago, with the finalization of the northern border of Memorial Park now in place and the completion of the earthen berm work underway, City of Coeur d'Alene Parks Director Bill Greenwood sees no value to the city owning the Tract A property, which Ignite currently owns, and thus recommends that the Ignite CDA retain ownership of Tract A and that Tract A be combined with Lot 1. Having Tract A combined with Lot 1 would make Lot 1 larger, obviously, and most likely more saleable, as it's still on the market for sale. So I bring that forward for board consideration.
Tony, what kind of shape is Tract A in?
What kind of shape is it in?
Like
It's beat up.
preparedness type shape.
Under construction.
Kind of like a drainage swale in construction, yeah.
It's not pristine country.
Yeah,
but,
well, I
there's
wasn't
Lot 1
expecting
right
that,
now, so,
yeah.
I think it can be made better. Hopefully, I think we're going to have to do that to sell it, but
It makes
I
sense.
think it's just been under construction, stuff that are in the middle of construction and
Okay. I just want to
driveway
make sure it wasn't,
construction.
like a
Yep.
you know,
ball and chain attached to our property.
I guess I didn't ask for permission, Mr. Chairman, but if I could just comment. I mean, I guess from a real estate perspective, I mean, anytime you add footage to the lot, you add some desirability. It's an odd-shaped piece of land, so the usability is kind of limited, but it does add some land to use and adds some buffer to that lot, so it certainly doesn't hurt anything. It adds some desirability to it.
Agreed.
I'm not sure what else we'd do with it.
But what happens if we don't add it to Lot A?
Well, we still own it, and,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but the city doesn't want to maintain it. They don't want to own it, so
Okay.
it makes logical sense just to combine it with.
Some of Bill's input then too.
Yeah, you can't make another lot out of it. It's too non-conforming for another lot.
Do we have to go back to a plat type process or something to do
We might.
a lot line adjustment or something, or?
I'm
Yeah, I'm
thinking a
looking
lot
at-
line adjustment would be the easiest way to fix it. And probably just merge it into that. Too bad Hillary left.
We might
She's
have,
here.
I think
She's
she's
here.
still
She's
here.
Here? Oh,
Would you please answer that question for us?
Would we have to
Good, we've got the
change,
expert
we've got
here.
the
You'd
overlay
have
of
to do a short plat.
Yeah.
To correct it, because the tract is, it's different than a lot. If they were both legal lots, you could do a boundary line adjustment
oh, that's why we
potentially.
can't do it.
But
Okay.
it's a tract and you need to,
Well, then we have
plat,
the
just that.
building envelope that we might want to change too, in light of
Oh,
that.
that's true,
Yep.
so.
that could all be addressed at the same
Yeah.
time.
So we could just do a short plat, just administrative, and fix that
Right.
pretty quick,
The
okay?
plat would still go to council, but it's administrative process.
Mr. Chairman, Hillary, would there be any access off of Tract A to Lot 1? So what I'm thinking of, maybe someone put a garage on that side and wanted a driveway going into Tract A? Is that something that's possible? That Tract A, even though I say, okay, you can add 1,521 square feet, it probably adds a little bit of value. I think it would add more value if you can have access off of that.
Off of Park Drive,
Yeah,
I think you're right.
yep, could be addressed if that was
okay.
the commission's desire, because otherwise, yeah, the plat was restricting access all from the alley, but that could be an option.
Kind of a unique,
Yeah.
kind of a unique lot.
It is unique, it's definitely, with the shape and everything, it's a little bit challenged.
Should this go back to our engineering partner to?
We can, if the board approves it, I'll work this through with the city, and we'll bring it forward.
I make a
Do you need
motion.
Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry. No, go
I
ahead.
thought, no, you go ahead and
Thanks,
make it.
Hillary.
I was just gonna do that,
Okay.
but go ahead, no
Okay,
problem.
I make a motion that we combine Tract A with Lot 1 on North Park Drive.
I'll second it.
Second, and instruct Tony to work with the city to,
We'll get it
We're
done.
instructing Tony to facilitate that.
And instruct
with the
Tony to
With the proper people.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And just, the mayor has a really good idea about making sure, or verifying if we could have a second access for,
Got that, yeah.
okay, great, thanks, Tony.
Just some initiative updates. The Stimson Mill Site Riverstone Area Traffic Impact Study. The Welch Coburn Transportation Team has completed the analysis of the existing network and are now in the middle of analyzing the future network as well as mitigations. They have coordinated with the city, KMPO, as well as the River's Edge developer to determine the location and impacts of future development and appropriate growth rates. At the city's request, the Welch Coburn team will discuss these topics at the December 11th P&Z meeting. So that's moving forward, and you'll get a heads up prior to that of kind of what their recommendations are looking like. On the Memorial Grandstand project, following the city's rejection of the 3 bids submitted for the Memorial Grandstand renovation project in October, the city decided to seek requests for qualifications from construction managers and general contractors. They set the amount for the project of $1,250,000. And they've had 3 vendors interested in this process, and they're going to be interviewing them on December 6th. So with the budget of $1,250,000, as you recall, our commitment was $1,161,570, which includes $150,000 from NIC in the partnership. We paid $68,083 to Architects West for the design, so we have left $1,093,487. Which is a little shy of the $1,250,000 that I believe the city's Park and Recs Commission is looking to make up. So that's kind of where we stand on that. Midtown request for proposals, as directed by the board in October, the Midtown RFP has been issued with proposals due January 11th, 2019. And finally, the North Idaho Collaborative Education Facility, the NICE project, from what I've been told, the contractor is starting to make progress. Significant progress with plans to have the roof on the building completed by month end. The project is going very smoothly except for a construction element involving the board-formed concrete sandwich walls, which is beyond my, Sarah's nodding and she's understanding. These walls have been much more time-consuming and difficult to construct than envisioned. The facility is scheduled to be complete by April 29th. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Board commissioner comments. Any board commissioner comments? Hearing none, this is the time for the second public comment. Any public comment? Please come forward. And give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, Board. Greg Johnson. I live at 1103 East Indiana Avenue, downtown. Was at 808 North 3rd Street, Midtown, for 22 years. Just a highlight on, I've been to a couple of the Midtown parking meetings, some of the feedback, living there for 22 years, living with the ebb and flow of businesses coming and going. And now we have this unique problem of, it's very successful in Midtown with the restaurants and the hubbub going on down there. So this is kind of an unusual problem to have, but my focus right now is the alleys and those two parking lots that we have that need some help. The 3rd Street green space may be a little too big, depending on what happens with what goes on with the junk building and the Paris Flea Market building and the properties there. There's some adjustment, but I would hate to see all of it go away. Like to see it look more like Sherman, some power, some lights, a group area to gather in that spot would be great. Looks like there's room in the back of that in the 3rd Street alley for some more paving and some more parking, maybe even a loading zone to help out some of those restaurants and whatnot. I did notice, living there for 22 years, never really experienced the alley on the 4th Street side. All those businesses between Angelo, that's Reed right there in Montana and all that. And those, one doesn't go all the way through because of the Yates Funeral Home blocks it. So there's a turnabout there. One had been paved, looked like years ago. Manhole covers have sunk in, there's potholes, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And then the other side has never been paved. So we have a lot of those in town. I see where urban renewal could spend some time and some money to walk it and look at it, improve it. I see little things where I know it's expensive to put all those wires underground and into the buildings. Is it as easy as to go a little higher so those trucks can deliver back there if it's a little easier? Some of those alley areas are kind of deep, so there's plenty of parking back there. They're just not maintained right. There's, I know we've made it easy for the waste disposal folks to just have those dumpsters out in the middle so that you can just come in and grab it for an experience once a week. If we could put them closer to the buildings, might be helpful. Just silly things like that. There are trees that have probably never been trimmed that overhang, that cause a safety issue, cause a hazard. Just little things like that. I was encouraged on what I saw with Hillary's the parking study and all. I think that was great. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, and I think we have a lot of open ears for that. I like that. And then one of the meetings I was at, there was a suggestion that maybe Midtown needs to do what downtown does and have an official association of keeping their matters controlled and taken care of. And with the tax dollars and what Ignite has done for Midtown, I would think you have 3 years left in this district. I would like to see a board member be the lead for that and, I don't know, reinvent what it should be for these businesses to work together and to do that and be guided by a non-paying, a volunteer from this committee to guide them into sending them off in 3 years and let them do their thing, but at least have the knowledge that you've started them off right. We've built it, they will come and they will move on. I think that would be really important. So I'm going to keep my ear and my eye on this and help out where I can and be a voice. But it is an odd problem to have in Midtown that we don't have enough parking for all these successful businesses. I think it's a great problem to have, and I would hope that we can get through it with the right guide. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Greg, I don't
Great.
think
Thank you.
your ideas were silly. I think if we do a bunch of those little ones, I think it'll help.
You know, there's,
So,
in the 3rd Street parking lot, there's posts that have been there since I've lived there that do nothing but hold a chain, and there's a parking place taken. There's a dumpster. I call it the 3rd Street and a half, because that can go that fast through there if it's not lit or speed bumps. The crossover from Montana, little routine, I saw it done again the other day. So again, a barrier of some sort. We're not looking at a lot of money here. I think it's just a little more, slow them down, light them up, make them safe.
We look forward to doing that.
Especially for the employees that work down there. They gotta have a safe place to be. I think it's important, so, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
Motion to enter into executive session.
Under Idaho Code 74206 subsection 1B to consider, oh no, it's not right.
See,
1C, the wrong thing in the minutes here. I don't have that.
here, I'll read it.
Okay.
Subsection 1C, to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and also subsection 1F, to communicate with legal counsel regarding pending litigation.
Okay.
Did I hear a second?
Yep.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
We're in executive session, and that's a wrap.